want to turn the page now and go back to the ancient world and provide a timeline for you of art that has been used for several millennia, several thousand years, to transmit or act as a conduit for a higher or finer divine vibration. This is the first ever timeline or chronology such as this you will ever see. Claire and I have been researching this sacred art for 8 years, and we have never encountered such a timeline, and that is a valuable aspect of our presentation today. It's not going to encompass the entire timeline, but I'm going to skip you through history to show that the use of art as a conduit, specifically for ascension purposes, has been a well-established practice for millennia. We'll begin with the ancient Egyptian pyramid text, the resurrection text from Saqqara, 2500 BC approximately, which provide a first look at an amazing spiritual technology aimed at animating inanimate objects of art by transmitting a spirit into it or through it. The guys at Google, Ray Kurzweil's gang, who are developing this next human, will want to watch this presentation because their ultimate quest is to be able to transmit spirit into their artificially intelligent creations. At Saqqara, we learn of the opening of the mouth ceremony or ritual, which was the start of the dead king's funerary journey. It was practiced for over 2,000 years and appears in the Papyrus of Ani, one section of the famous Book of the Dead. And in this section, we see the statue, an image of the pharaoh, the deceased pharaoh, being reanimated, being reactivated for existence in a higher dimension or realm. The opening of the mouth was a ritual whose purpose was to invoke the spirit of a god into a statue of that god. Copy, paste. From one state of being into another. Its full title is The Opening of the Mouth and Eyes, and some consider it to be a reenactment of human birth events and was a way for the process to be duplicated in order to give the statue life. The point here is the ancient Egyptians firmly believed that inanimate objects could be vehicles for spirit, that spirit can be copied and pasted or cut and pasted from one vessel or container into another. In the ceremony, the statue's eyes are opened so it can see, and its mouth was opened so it can speak. And according to E.A. Wally Budge, the great Egyptologist, the first Egyptologist on the Book of the Dead, he said that the ceremony of the opening of the mouth is very ancient and probably dates from the end of the Neolithic period in Egypt. So the Egyptians possessed this spiritual technology whereby they could transmit a spirit from one container to another. And this is what we see in this scene from the tomb of King Tut, where he is the one who is going through this opening of the mouth initiation. And Isis is taking part. And look at the symbol of the squiggly line coming out of her hand. That has to symbolize frequency or vibration that she is transmitting to Tutankhamun. And here's the actual opening of the mouth ceremony where the inanimate object is now being infused with the spirit of Tutankhamun. The practice of instilling a work of art may not have a work of art with spirit may not have actually originated with the Egyptians. The Sumerians were utilizing a virtually identical ceremony to that of the Egyptian opening of the mouth ceremony. From the end of the 3rd millennium BC onward, Mesopotamian gods were worshipped in their temples in corporeal manifestations as living anthropomorphic cult statues. Let that sink in for a moment, because what this is saying is that the statue of the god in a temple was equal to the physical presence of that god. Think about that. A lot of people understand the Sumerian stories of the Anunnaki and think of them as these celestial beings, these flesh and blood beings that came to earth, mated with the daughters of man and created hybrid beings. But there's equal evidence to say that they didn't show up in person. They sent a work of art. They caused an artist to sculpt an image such as this one here of Inanna or Ishtar. And it could be imbued with the spirit of that being. Why send yourself to London on an airplane when you can just beam an image of yourself and imbue it with your spirit? That's essentially what this is saying. So this icon of Inanna or Ishtar is in fact Ishtar, according to this viewpoint, according to this spiritual practice. As the scholar Victor Avigor-Hurab says, given the centrality of these statues, it may be assumed that a ritual was performed in which the finite physical image of the intangible God was transformed into the manufactured icon, and transformed it into a living deity. And this, he says, was one of the most significant practice in Mesopotamian religion. We're looking at here another sculpture of an Anunnaki god, presumed to be Anu, one of the high gods, if not the high god of the Anunnaki hierarchy. This is in the British Museum. And what he tells us is that these statues were not just symbols of the god, they were a conduit between the human and the divine realms. There is no question, he says, that the cuneiform text from Mesopotamia, both historical and religious, refer to a statue of a god as being the God manifest on earth as him or herself. Let that sink in. The gods didn't need to come here in spaceships. They didn't need to come clear across the galaxy. They just needed to find a way to get an artist to create their image and then imbue that image through like an opening of the mouth ceremony with the divine spirit of the god, and the god was present. The god could see through that sculpture. I know it sounds bizarre, but this is the first example where we're to be instructed that a divine being can see you through their image. They can see you through their image. Think about what this means and what kind of universe it means that we actually live in. This is why the eye-to-eye images and sculptures are so profound to the Egyptians and the Sumerians, and why you only see the cutaway in Egypt very often. It's because of that eye-to-eye contact. The divine being can be present in that image and can interact with you through that image. Beautiful image of Anu in the British Museum. The merging of human and divine space was achieved through mouth cleansing, or what the Sumerians called mispai, or maypai, and mouth opening, or pitpai, rituals which were performed on the statue to make it into an image that properly represented the deity. There undoubtedly, these priests are receiving transmissions from the divine being, and he's saying, sculpt me this way, make me look like this, and then I will be properly represented. These rites of purification had to be performed on the cult statue before it could take up residence in the Holy of Holies, the holy place. In this example, also from the British Museum, the cuneiform text beneath the stele is divided into 15 passages, blending prose, poetic, and rhetorical elements, and tells of the fashioning of typical Mesopotamian inscriptions. It tells how Sippar and the Ebibar temple of Shamash, the sun god, had fallen into disrepair with the loss of the statue of the god. They lost the statue of the god, and they had no connection then with the sun god. This image that we're looking at, this cult image, temporarily was replaced with the solar disk that we see in this image. And the text that we're looking at here further described how a new figure of Shamash was found in an eastern part of the Euphrates, from which they had constructed a new statue of lapis lazuli and gold to restore the cult. So they lost the statue. They created this stele as a temporary, a holding place that could still transmit the vibration of Shamash. And then when they found the original, they were all happy again because the sun god was present once again in the divine place. Literally present is what they're saying. Both the Egyptian and the Sumerian rituals involve a statue of a god, and both involve charging or consecrating that statue, downloading into it the presence of that divine being so that the divine being could interact with humans and humans could interact with that divine being. and both involve opening the mouth of the statue. From Samaria, we have this other example of King Judea. Academic art scholars look at this and say, okay, this is one of numerous representations of Judea, King Judea. But this one is very important because the statue first is made out of diorite, which is very difficult to work with. It's not an easy material for carving. And also that this figure is made in votive style. And unlike other votive statues, he's carrying something in his hands. By contextualizing the figure as a votive or a worship item, this addition of him holding something could either be taken as an offering to the gods or a gift from the gods. In other words, what they're saying is that looking at this statue of Judea, you are receiving the holy water that is coming out of his face. If you can get yourself into the right mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional space and become in unison, the God on the other side of the statue can transmit that holy water to you through this statue. This is what they're saying is the common practice in Mesopotamian religion in terms of worship of the Anunnaki. In both the Egyptian and Sumerian ceremonies, an object of art is created and consecrated, it's made holy, giving it life and transmitting the divine presence into it. The opening of the mouth and the Mispai or Maypai ceremonies tell us that gods were movable, they were transportable, and were imbued or infused with the divine essence or vibration that came from the stars and could be experienced through a work of art. They could be experienced through a work of art. The Hermetic literature among the Egyptians was concerned with conjuring spirits into art and statues and informed the oldest Hellenistic writings on the Greco-Babylonian astrology and on the newly developed practice of alchemy, says Jason Calavito. In a parallel tradition, Hermetic philosophy rationalized and systematized religious cult practices and offered the adept a means of personal ascension from the constraints of the physical being by conjuring the images into a work of art. This is me at Highclere Castle in England, near London. And the reason I'm showing you this picture is because that is what is known as a herm out on that pillar leading into at the driveway going into Highclere Castle. A herm is a stone that is imbued with the essence of the god Hermes, a work of art used as a method of connecting us to Hermes, the great god of divine magic and alchemy. Every major religion has two components: written text about its respective deity and art. And throughout history, proponents or interpreters of the words only have been in perpetual conflict with advocates of the image. The struggles between the iconodules, those who serve images, and the iconoclasts, those who destroy images, is best exemplified in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, where art has been demonized by some, but upheld as a gateway to heaven by others. Some would say what I've been describing to you is New Age. You know, they say, oh, it's New Age. It's not New Age. You can see it's millennia old. And what they mostly don't understand is that the prohibition against graven images has a historical backdrop of a coup, of a changing of the gods. Before the Ten Commandments came along and Moses gave us the second commandment that thou shalt not worship graven images, the Israelites utilized images of the divine feminine. They worshiped Hathor and Isis. They utilized the symbol of the serpent on a pole, the Nehushtan, as a divine healing method. Then after Moses receives the Ten Commandments, he smashes the graven images. He would no longer have anything to do with that work of art that he created. Where did this commandment come from? Why for millennia, for 2 millennia, are religious and spiritual people utilizing images, taught that they can use an image, they can see an image and connect with a God? Why all of a sudden is that practice severed? Who did that? Well, it was King Josiah who actually did it around 600 BC, but why? Is it because of this battle between those who say we're going to just worship God through words, or they who want to connect with the divine realm through images? I believe that that's exactly what's going on.